We don't have time for this. The words hit harder than the cold, clipped, loud, delivered like a verdict. She didn't whisper them, she threw them into the stillness of a 6:17 a.m. roadside, just off a winding corporate park exit, where the fog still clung low to the pavement like judgment. A silver hatchback had stopped just 20 feet away, its passenger a white woman in heels. Neat blazer, hair tied in corporate precision, stepped out, already annoyed. She stared across the road at the woman standing beside the disabled car. "Let's go," she barked, turning toward her driver. "She's fine." He didn't answer. He hadn't moved. The woman being dismissed stood quietly beside her vehicle, calm despite the obvious, front tire flattened, hazard lights blinking a slow, sad rhythm. She held a tire iron in one hand, a small emergency jack in the other. No phone, no panic, no performance. She had flagged the car down with a simple wave, a glance that asked nothing more than, "Can you help?" "I just needed a jack," she repeated, polite, level, unshaken. But the woman in heels rolled her eyes, stepping back toward the car. "This is not the morning for this. We have interviews, and I'm not showing up late because someone forgot to check their tire pressure." She climbed back into the car, slamming the door shut like punctuation. The man in the driver's seat stayed still, his hand on the gear shift, his eyes locked on the woman by the roadside. He hesitated, then moved. He opened the door and stepped out. The hatchback jerked forward as the woman inside huffed and drove off, leaving a thin cloud of exhaust in her wake. "She's not wrong," he said quietly, walking up. "We are on the clock." The woman nodded once. "You don't have to stay." He crouched beside the damaged tire, already rolling up his sleeves. "I want to." For a moment, there was only the sound of birds waking up and the soft click of metal against rubber. She handed him the jack. He didn't look at her face. She didn't offer her name. And yet, in that early light, between the fog and the flattened rubber and the choice no one expected him to make, a new story began. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Rachel. Rachel didn't look like someone who ran an empire. She looked like someone who just finished a morning jog, black track pants, fitted windbreaker. No jewelry, no design or anything. Her hair was pulled back into a low twist, edges neat but unfussy. A pair of plain running shoes, dusty from the shoulder gravel, peeped beneath her pant cuffs. No logo, no label, no need. She stood there not as a spectacle, but as a question one people rarely asked out loud, but often answered in silence. Does she belong here? She'd been asked that question in airports, in lobbies, in boardrooms, never directly, but always in tone, in posture, in eyes that skipped her in favor of the man beside her, in receptionists who said please wait before she said her name. This morning, the question showed up in a refusal to stop, a refusal to believe she might need help and deserve it. But she wasn't surprised. This wasn't the first time a flat tire had tested more than just rubber. She watched the man crouch beside the wheel, working quietly. His breath came out in visible puffs. He didn't complain. He didn't try to impress. He didn't even ask why she was out here alone. That told her everything. She knelt beside him, offering the lug nuts without speaking. He nodded in thanks. They worked in rhythm, no need for small talk. Just the cold, the tools, the sound of bolts cracking loose. Finally, as he spun the jack down, he broke the silence. "I'm Ethan, by the way." Rachel glanced over. "Rachel." He wiped his hands on his slacks. "You heading into the city?" She nodded. "Yes, Midtown." He looked at his watch and exhaled. "We were both going to the same interview, weren't we?" Rachel didn't blink. "Were you?" He let out a short laugh. "Yeah. Building 320, 8th floor, 7:30 a.m. She smiled, not wide, not cruel, just enough. "That's quite the coincidence." He stood. "Well, I might have blown it. I'll be late now." She looked at him, straight on. "Maybe not." He raised a brow, but she was already checking her tire pressure one last time. "Thanks for staying," she said, slipping the tire iron back into the trunk. "I just did what was right," Ethan shrugged. "No big deal." But Rachel held his gaze. Exactly. No audience, no reward, still chose to stay. She closed the trunk with a soft thud. From behind them, the early hum of traffic began. Tail lights flickered along the main road. But the moment between them, it stayed still. He walked back to the road. She followed. Their cars pulled out slowly, merging into the quiet current of the city waking up. Only one of them knew what would happen next, and she wasn't telling. Not yet. The lobby at 320 Midtown was already awake. It smelled like ambition, fresh brewed coffee, leather portfolios, cologne sharpened with nerves. A long marble counter stretched across the far end, staffed by two receptionists in matching navy blazers. Behind them, a brass plaque glinted under soft downlights. Monroe Talent Group Executive Division. 7:19 a.m. Candidates had already begun to trickle in. Most were dressed for Conquest stiff collars, tailored coats, polished shoes that clicked across the floor like declarations. One of them, Amanda Sloan, leaned against the counter, tapping her heel impatiently. Blonde bob, power pantsuit, resume in a navy folder. She glanced up as the front doors slid open. Rachel stepped in. Same windbreaker, same sneakers, same calm. Amanda blinked, then blinked again. Rachel walked with the steady ease of someone who wasn't lost. But Amanda didn't move, just stared. "Excuse me," Rachel said politely, nodding toward the check-in line. Amanda slid sideways, barely. At the counter, the receptionist glanced up. "Name?" "Rachel Monroe." Pause. The woman frowned, her eyes scanning the jacket, the shoes, the absence of makeup. "You applying?" she asked, uncertain. "I'm here for the interviews," Rachel said. Another pause. The woman's lips tightened. Amanda stepped closer. "This morning's interviews are for executive associates," she offered lightly. But laced with something. "Senior level, not operations." Rachel didn't respond. The receptionist finally tapped her tablet. "I don't see a Monroe on the candidate list." Rachel's tone remained even. "Check under Monroe, Rachel, or just Rachel." Behind her, Ethan entered, slightly flushed. Hair wine tussled, but collar straightened. He spotted Rachel instantly and gave a quick, confused smile. Amanda turned. "Oh," she said, her voice lilting. "You made it." Ethan nodded. "Barely." Rachel said nothing, just took a step back, letting him approach the counter. "Name?" the receptionist asked. "Ethan Moore." Tap, beepy smile. "You're confirmed. 8th floor, elevator B." Amanda looked over. "We should head up. They're starting in 10. She glanced once more at Rachel, this time letting her eyes run the full-skin jacket, slacks. "Number bag, no badge." "She's not on the list," the receptionist said. "Maybe she's in the wrong building." Rachel gave a soft smile. "No," she said. "This is the right place." Amanda tilted her head. "You sure?" "Very." Ethan looked between them. He opened his mouth, then stopped. Rachel stepped aside, letting them pass. She didn't follow, not yet. Amanda leaned in close to Ethan as they crossed the floor. "I saw her on the roadside," she murmured, trying to flag people down. Ethan stopped walking. "She was asking for a jack," he said. Amanda laughed softly. "And you actually helped. You're gonna show up to a corporate interview with grease on your hands?" He didn't answer. Amanda smiled. "You're a good guy, Ethan. But this world doesn't reward detours." He looked back once. Rachel was still standing at the counter, arms relaxed, watching the elevator numbers tick. Amanda didn't look back at all. The elevator was too quiet. Amanda stood nearest the panel, tapping the button for the 8th floor 3 times like it would make the car move faster. Ethan stood behind her, adjusting his cuffs. Rachel stepped in last. No one said anything, just the soft hum of the motor rising floor to 134. Amanda glanced sideways, her voice low but cutting. "So what exactly is your background?" she asked Rachel, keeping her tone airy. "Operations, HR." Rachel didn't blink, Strategy. Oh. Amanda's eyebrow lifted. At what level? Rachel turned slightly, eyes steady. High enough to know this elevator's about to answer that for you. Ethan looked up. Floor 6. Amanda scoffed gently. We're all candidates today. No need for riddles. Rachel said nothing, just faced forward. Floor 7. The silence wasn't awkward. It was intentional. Amanda cleared her throat. I mean, let's be honest. They're looking for poise, professionalism, presence. She gave Rachel a quick glance. First impressions matter. A lot. Rachel smiled politely, saying nothing. Ding. Floor 8. The door slid open. A receptionist was already standing there, holding a tablet. Good morning, she said. Ms. Monroe, the board is ready for you. Amanda froze. The silence hit first. Then the name, Ms. Monroe. The receptionist nodded, stepping aside. Rachel turned to Amanda, then Ethan. Thank you for riding up with me. She walked forward, calm, controlled, like the hallway itself had been waiting for her. Amanda didn't move. Her jaw clenched, folders shifting in her grip. Ethan looked down at the tire mark still faint on his cuff, the scuff on his shoe, the dried smear of effort on his fingers. He looked up again. Rachel was already halfway down the corridor. She didn't look back, but something about her walk, her ease, her stillness had told him what he already suspected. She wasn't here to be interviewed. She was here to decide. The waiting lounge outside the boardroom was styled like a boutique law firm darkwood. Beige armchairs, minimalist art no one looked at. A glass partition separated the seating area from a long hallway where senior partners and HR leads paced with clipboards and coffee cups. Candidates sat scattered, flipping resumes they had memorized for days. But none of them noticed what Amanda noticed. She was still frozen. Rachel Monroe, the woman with no badge, the one with running shoes and a tire iron. No, it couldn't be. But Amanda wasn't the only one watching. From the far end of the lounge, a young assistant Malik, 23, intern badge swinging on a navy lanyard, glanced up from the coffee station. He'd seen Ms. Monroe before, once, maybe twice, usually on a screen during executive calls. But this morning, she walked past him, in person. No entourage, no pretense. She nodded at him as she passed. That was the giveaway. No executive nods to interns, not unless they remember. Malik put down the stir stick slowly. He looked across the lounge and caught Ethan's eye. Ethan, still standing near the elevator, hadn't sat down. His mind was running. Rachel Monroe. He heard the name before. Wasn't she on the internal memo? Something about a leadership acquisition move. Wait. He reached for his phone, pulled up his company news alerts, thumb scrolling with shaky precision. There it was. Rachel Monroe appointed chair of Strategic Integration, Monroe Talent Group, Q2 Expansion 2025. His stomach turned. Amanda dropped into her seat like gravity had changed. Across from her, a man in his 40s muttered, "Was that the hiring director?" Someone else whispered, "I thought the panel was anonymous." Malik stepped back from the coffee bar and said quietly, "That was the panel." Amanda snapped her head toward him. "Excuse me?" "She owns this process," Malik said calmly, "and the company." No one spoke. Ethan exhaled slowly. He sat down next to Amanda. Not because he wanted to, but because his legs had finally caught up to the moment. Amanda turned toward him. Her voice was low, but tight. "You knew something." "I helped her with a flat tire," Ethan said quietly. "Didn't know who she was." Amanda blinked. "And you still helped?" He nodded. She asked nicely. Amanda scoffed under her breath, but the sharpness was gone. The room wasn't buzzing, not yet, but it was shifting. People began checking their notes less and watching the hallway more. One candidate closed his laptop. Another pulled off his tie. Just a little. Like suddenly. The costume didn't feel right. No one knew what would happen next. But whatever it was, it had already started. Amanda couldn't sit still anymore. She stood, smoothed her blazer, and crossed the room like a woman chasing control. Ethan watched her go, saying nothing. Rachel stood at the far end of the glass hallway. Speaking quietly to an HR assistant, her posture relaxed, one hand in her pocket. The assistant nodded rapidly, then hurried off. Amanda walked straight toward her. "Excuse me," she said, voice tight. "Are you evaluating us?" Rachel turned, calm. "Yes." Amanda folded her arms. "Because if I'm being honest, it's hard to tell what you're evaluating for." Rachel tilted her head, not in offense and curiosity. Amanda continued, "I'm not questioning your position, but appearance matters. Presentation reflects intention. This is an executive role, not a mentorship round." Rachel's gaze didn't waver. "So you assume I'm not intentional?" Amanda hesitated. "You showed up in sneakers, no badge, no announcement." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Does that offend you, or just confuse you?" Behind them, Malik paused by the coffee station, pretending to refill sugar packets, but listening. Amanda exhaled through her nose. "Let me rephrase. If this was a test to see who would treat someone ordinary with respect, that's manipulative. You created a false scenario." Rachel looked her in the eye. "I didn't create anything. You did." Amanda blinked. Rachel continued, "I was on the side of the road. You chose not to stop. I didn't know it was you. Would it have mattered?" Amanda said nothing. Rachel took a step closer, not menacing, measured. "You're asking if my appearance matches my authority, but I'm asking if your compassion requires credentials." Amanda's jaw clenched. "I'm not here to play games." "I know," Rachel replied. "You're here to win. But you forgot the rules changed." Amanda tried to laugh it off. "Look, I've worked hard. I'm qualified. I've led teams, closed million-dollar contracts. This isn't about morality, it's about metrics." Rachel's voice didn't rise. "Then let me give you a new metric. Who did you choose to be when no one was watching?" For a split second, Amanda's face cracked. And behind the glass, in the lounge, Ethan lowered his eyes. He remembered the moment the hatchback pulled away. He remembered Rachel standing there alone. Amanda turned on her heel and walked off. But the silence she left behind followed her down the hall. Malik glanced toward Rachel. She caught his eye. He gave a small, respectful nod. She didn't smile. She just nodded back. The room fell quiet, the kind of quiet that makes paper sound like thunder. Amanda had re-entered the lounge like a gust of cold air. She dropped into the nearest chair, pulled out her resume folder, and said, not whispered, not muttered, said. She was flagging down cars, literally standing in the street like one of those stranded types. "I thought she was lost." A chuckle came from someone to seats over. Another leaned in, murmured, "She looked like she didn't belong." Ethan didn't laugh. He stared at Amanda. "You're talking about the person who's about to choose your salary." Amanda shrugged. "Well, if she's professional, she won't take it personally." Malik, still at the coffee station, stiffened. Someone else chimed in. "Wait, that was Ms. Monroe." "Yeah," Amanda said. She didn't say it, but she made it a test. A pause. Then she added, loud enough for all to hear. "She set us up, played the poor damsel on the roadside so she could judge who's nice and who isn't. That's not leadership, that's theater." Malik dropped the stir stick. Ethan stood up. "I think," he said, "you're missing the point." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Enlighten me." "She didn't play anything," Ethan said. "She was stranded, and you didn't care. I helped not because she was someone powerful, but because she was someone asking." Amanda smirked. "And that earned you a promotion?" "No, that earned me respect, which, clearly, you're still chasing." A murmur rolled across the room, not loud but real. In the hallway, Rachel appeared behind the glass again, speaking with two senior staffers. She held a tablet now, scrolling. One of the executives laughed at something she said, a deep, warm laugh, like they'd worked together for years. Amanda watched them, and for the first time that morning, her fingers trembled slightly against the leather folder. Someone whispered, "She didn't need to play a part. She owned the stage." Another, "She's been evaluating us since we walked in." The mood had shifted. No longer a room of competitors, now a room of witnesses. Rachel stepped into view. This time, every eye followed her. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Amanda looked down. Ethan remained standing. And Malik reached into his pocket, pulled out a phone and tapped record. Not for revenge, for truth. The boardroom door opened without sound, but its silence had weight. Rachel stepped inside. Not rushed, not grand. No entrance music, just presence. 10 executives sat along the curved walnut table, each with tablets or notepads, murmuring updates. They looked up and straightened. One stood. "Good morning, Ms. Monroe." Rachel gave a brief nod. "Thank you." She crossed the room slowly, her sneakers muffled against the carpeted floor. No heels, no silk scarf. But she didn't need any of that. Her authority wasn't worn. It was carried. A woman from legal leaned toward the chairman. "She's the one," he whispered back, "founder's niece." But she built her own wing. Rachel took the center seat. Not the edge, not beside anyone. The seat. A project manager on the far side cleared his throat. "We were just reviewing the candidate roster." Rachel opened her tablet. "Let's begin." From the glass wall, Ethan could see everything. He stood quietly in the lounge, hands folded in front of him. Amanda didn't get up. Rachel's voice floated through the slightly open partition. "Remove candidate 1731 from the interview pool. Amanda Sloan. We won't be proceeding." A hush dropped across the lounge like a blackout curtain. Amanda's breath caught. No announcement, no justification. Just a single sentence, spoken like she was ordering coffee, firm, final, forgettable to everyone but the one who just got erased. Malik, watching from his desk, whispered to himself. That's how power speaks. Ethan didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just sat down again, quietly. Amanda stood up. She didn't argue, didn't protest. She just left, folder in hand, steps quick but silent. No one watched her go. All eyes were still on the glass, on the woman in sneakers and quiet fury now leading the conversation inside with the same tone she'd used by the tire, the same poise, the same focus. Only now, people were listening. Back inside, Rachel scrolled her tablet. Candidate 1744, she said. Let's move him up the list. The head of talent looked over. Ethan Moore. Rachel nodded. He passed the only test we didn't put on paper. It wasn't a dramatic pause. Rachel didn't wait for the room to quiet down. She didn't clear her throat, didn't tap her glass. She simply looked up from the tablet and spoke. For anyone confused, she said, I am Rachel Monroe, Chair of Strategic Integration, and the person making final decisions for this division. Her voice didn't need to rise. It landed, like a stone in a still lake, no splash, just endless ripples. Behind the glass wall, someone in the lounge gasped. One of the executive assistants inside the boardroom shifted in his chair, hands suddenly tighter on his stylus. The head of HR, a woman who'd assumed she was leading this panel, adjusted her posture not out of disrespect, but recalibration. Rachel continued. I'm aware not all of you recognized me this morning. That's fine. I don't require recognition. I require alignment. The phrase hung in the air. I don't require recognition. I require alignment. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't bitter. It was policy. Some of you saw a woman asking for help. Some saw a problem in running shoes. Some didn't see anything at all. She glanced toward the window. Through the one-way glass, she could see outlines, movement, stillness. Faces watching from the lounge. Rachel turned back to the table. One of your candidates responded without asking who I was. Without hesitation, without pretense. She tapped her tablet, which tells me more than this folder ever could. Ethan, on the other side of the glass, looked down at his hands. They were still marked faintly with grease, still not perfect. But in that moment, they looked more like credentials than anything printed on his resume. Inside, a younger executive leaned toward her. May I ask why the test? Rachel looked at him. No one shows their real values when the lights are on. But leave them in the dark, you'll see everything. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't awkward. It was reverence. One of the panelists leaned back and whispered, she built this. The legal advisor nodded, from the ground up. And Malik, still at the intern desk, still pretending not to eavesdrop, wrote something on a sticky note and pressed it inside his notebook. "Our doesn't need a podium." Rachel leaned forward, fingers steepled. "We'll proceed with interviews as scheduled. But understand, this division isn't hiring for skill alone. We're hiring for integrity, for character, for people who do the right thing even when no one's watching." No one nodded. They didn't need to, because now they knew. The energy in the waiting lounge changed, like someone had pulled a wire from the wall. No more rehearsing answers. No more fake smiles. Just silence, the kind that happens after a reveal so sharp no one dares speak first. Amanda's chair sat empty. She hadn't returned. No footsteps, no folder. Just a lingering perfume that smelled like ambition shaken by consequence. Ethan sat alone now, to seats from where she'd been. His phone buzzed softly. A message from reception. "Mr. Moore, please proceed to Conference B. Ms. Monroe will see you privately." He stood, not cocky, not nervous, just ready. As he walked past the others, no one tried to make eye contact. Not because they disrespected him, because they finally understood him. He wasn't lucky. He was seen. Malik gave him a subtle nod as he passed. Ethan returned it, then disappeared down the hall. Inside the lounge, a man in his 50s whispered, "We prepped for the wrong exam." A younger woman beside him muttered, "We wore the right suits, just forgot the right skin." Another added, "I practiced my pitch, not my posture." No one laughed. Across the room, the receptionist tapped her screen, then paused. Her eyes drifted toward the hallway where Rachel had gone. She whispered to herself, "I didn't even look her in the eye this morning." Meanwhile, back in Conference B, the door closed with a soft click. Ethan stood across from Rachel. She was seated, one leg crossed, tablet in lap. No smile yet, just study. "You kept your name to yourself," he said. "You kept your decency," she replied. He chuckled lightly, rubbing the back of his neck. "I wasn't trying to impress. That's what impressed me." She gestured to the chair. "Sit." He did. The chair didn't creak. The room didn't echo. It just held space. Rachel looked at him for a moment, not reading his resume, reading him. Finally, she said, "I'm not looking for someone who fits the role. I'm looking for someone who reshapes it." Ethan sat straighter. Rachel closed her tablet. "You're getting the offer, if you want it." He didn't blink. "I do." A pause. Then, for the first time that day, she smiled. "Good. Because integrity is hard to teach, but easy to recognize." Rachel didn't make announcements. She made decisions. Back in the lounge, a notification popped up on the digital board listing interview slots. 7:45 a.m. Ethan Moore assigned. 8:15 a.m. Amanda Sloan canceled. 8:30 a.m. reassigned. No fanfare, no memo. Just one word, canceled. Someone whispered, "That's it." Malik answered, "That's enough." No appeals, no second chances, no polite HR follow-up. Amanda had been removed the same way she dismissed others, efficiently. Inside Conference B, Rachel handed Ethan a manila envelope. "Your formal offer," she said. "We're fast-tracking onboarding. You'll meet the team Friday." Ethan looked down at the folder. His name was printed cleanly on the label. No frills, no exaggeration, just recognition. Rachel stood. He followed. As they exited the conference room, passing by the lounge, every head turned, not dramatically, just instinctively. Rachel didn't look at them. She didn't need to. But Ethan gave a nod, not of victory, but of gratitude. Malik straightened in his seat. One of the other candidates stood to shake Ethan's hand, then stopped halfway, unsure. Ethan kept walking. Rachel led him to the elevator, pressed the button. The doors open, empty, waiting. She extended a hand. "We'll see you Friday." He took it, firm, quiet, full circle, then stepped in. The doors began to close. Rachel turned back toward the hall, ready for her next meeting. But just before the elevator sealed shut, Ethan called out, "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" Rachel paused, turned slightly, and said, "Because I already knew who you were." The doors closed. The ride down was silent. But it didn't feel like a descent. It felt like a beginning. The hallway emptied slowly. One by one, candidates were dismissed, some politely, others silently. A few received handshakes. Most received nods. None were told why. Because Rachel didn't explain her standards. She embodied them. Back inside the boardroom, the final interview forms were being filed. HR packed up their tablets. The chair of finance leaned over and said, "You sure about him?" Rachel didn't hesitate. "I saw enough." He nodded. "Interesting method." She looked at him. It wasn't a method. He paused. "No." Rachel stood, gathering her things. "I wasn't testing them. They tested themselves. I just paid attention." She walked to the far end of the room, past the windows, past the waiting folders, and paused in front of the security monitor, a muted screen showing lobby footage. She watched a replay. Grainy. Timestamp. 6:17 a.m. Rachel standing alone, holding the tire iron. Then Ethan, stepping out of the hatchback, approaching without words. She watched it for exactly 6 seconds, then looked up, not at anyone in the room, but directly into the lens mounted above the monitor. The security camera blinked red once. She spoke, just loud enough, to every woman dismissed before she could speak, to every black professional questioned before qualified, and to every person watching someone struggle and thinking, "That's not my problem. Remember this. You're not being watched to catch you. You're being watched to see you. What you do when no one claps, that's who you are." She turned, walked out, down the hall, out the doors, into daylight. Same sneakers, same stride. No need to look back.